Hi, welcome everybody to my strength stacking shield crushing Ascendant here. Now be sure to check out the most recent Curious Synergies video so you have a good idea of all the synergies happening on this build here. This is the actual guide now. So we've got 1,585 strength, actually 1,679 strength because we're using Doon Cuebiyari in our main hand. Because we're shield crushing, we don't need a main hand. This is essentially a stat stick here. We're using Shield Crush with Fortify, Life Tap, increased critical damage, increased critical strike chance, and Awakened Void Manipulation support. Because we're using Replica Alberon's Warpath, we don't actually care about the physical damage on this, so we use a Pure Energy Shield, and then stack Chaos damage and critical strike chance and multiplier. As with most strength stacking, we're going to be stacking strength to increase our melee physical damage at a rate of 3% per 10 strength, which is also added as strength's damage bonus applies to spell damage as well. So while we have 3% melee damage per 10 strength, we also have 3% spell damage per 10 strength, and then we also have Battlemage's Cry to help us get 150% of the spell damage applied to attacks as well, so strength applies to attacks twice. You'll notice here we're not using a helmet, that's because we're using Dance with Death. Now to sum up the synergy here is that we have a wide range of potential damage, and making the critical strike chance and damage with that lucky allows you to minimize the damage range and essentially make the damage more consistent. We've got a bunch of jewelry here corrupted to have percent strength, ideally percent intelligence as well, because that's a little bit harder to get. We do need that to get 306 intelligence to wear our gloves. We're using mostly chaos resistance jewelry in order to hit pretty reasonable chaos resistance, 74%, almost 75%. Well, we can do that. Just a few gear upgrades and we might be able to get capped there too. And we're getting our elemental resistances from Pathfinder auto flasking. And that way we don't actually have to get too much of our resistances on our gear. And we get 60% block from our chest piece, but spell damage block is unlucky. What else are we doing? We got a percent strength synthesized amulet with strength and attributes on it. This I only got recently. Do need to recraft it to get better overall stats on it. Using Tactician's very, very useful here on this build because it's giving us strength and intelligence, both of which we need. It's giving us elemental resistance, critical strike chance when we hit the strength and intelligence thresholds, which we do. But that 50% increased flash charges gained allows us to save the pathing points to go to, this is 20, 40% flash charges gained if you've dealt a critical strike recently. We get 50 all the time, so we don't have to path there. And that 60% critical strike chance, we don't actually have to grab this 50 here. We do lose a little multiplier, but I think it's worth it for that. Let's go ahead and, as I said, Pathfinder, auto-flasking, and as you saw, we're using Path of the Ranger in order to just cut off the portion of the Ranger tree right here. Otherwise, you'd spend about 6 more points right here connecting it. That saved us about 6 points. And the other ascendancy we grab is Berserker for more damage and rage and some leech killed recently. In order to keep the if you've killed recently up as long as we can, we use Writhing Jar, so we have it as soon as we start a boss fight. Even if we haven't killed recently, we can have the 2% leech up at all times. That's it for the ascendancy. So like I mentioned earlier, we're using a Brutal Restraint jewel in the name of Ascendant, is that right? Denoted service of whatever number Dakara in Akara of Ascendant, which will get you Dance with Death Keystone. The downside of this keystone is we can't use the other timeless jewel that gives us strength instead, so we do lose strength and we gain dexterity. Unfortunately, we won't be grabbing percent strength notables like this percent dexterity here. Yeah, and we have a Seething Fury, which is going to be critical here because we don't get any benefit from our shield if we don't have this, because we're not getting physical damage anyway, because we don't need it, and also we're not using anything besides an energy shield. So this will give us critical strike chance and multiplier. We actually hit about 74% critical strike chance without it even being lucky, and also without generating any power charges, which we have a 5% chance on crit thanks to the corruption. Because we're using Battlemage's Cry, we're going to want Call to Arms, and these 4 points right here is all you really need. This will give you duration and buff effect, and a little bit of cooldown recovery rate, which will ultimately get you to a 7.14 second cooldown and a 7.67 second buff duration, so you can keep that up. Then it's pretty standard going around the strength side, picking up life. We have a Watcher's Eye here, with Chaos Resist when affected by Purity of Elements, and Life Recovery when affected by Vitality. You don't need that second modifier there. Ideally, you'd have Attack Damage when affected by Precision. That would get you the most damage from this Watcher's Eye. And I grabbed the entire Purity of Flesh circle here because I wanted more Chaos Resist, but you really only need these first 2 points here for most efficiency of points. This Cluster Jewel, very, very nice. It gives you a bunch of spell damage, generic damage, 10 strength per notable or per node, which obviously we're strength stacking, very nice. Spell damage comes out as even higher than it is written here because of Battlemage's Cry. We've got one medium cluster jewel here with Special Reserve and Spike Concoction. Because we're Pathfinder, we want that extra flash charges gained and effect whenever we use a flask. Special Reserve will give us increased damage and life regen during any flask effect, which is up all the time thanks to permaflasking. We've got one split personality here with life and strength. This one cost around 2 to 3 exalts. This one cost me 8 exalts, which is the largest single purchase that I had on this build, which is what enabled me to switch out of an Astromantis into a percent strength amulet. This amulet on its own gives me around about 300 strength. And this is a level 84 character, but I will link a level 90 Path of Building in the description. Essentially, we'd be finishing up Corruption here, which would give us a little bit of leech to Energy Shield and increased effect Wither, and, chaos damage. We could grab a little bit of life and strength here, but mostly we're filling out life now because we have just over 5k life. If you don't want life, you can obviously opt for another jewel. Over here on this side, the ranger side, we're grabbing most of the flask circles. Obviously not the one up here as I mentioned earlier because we're using Tactician. We're going to grab Heart of Oak for life, regen, and stun avoidance, which in combination with the flasks, we do have 98 up to 103% avoidance. That's from this 50% chance right here. Life, and we grab Aspect of the Links and Weapon Artistry here because we're putting an Inertia jewel here. So on its own, this only gives 24 strength, but because we're grabbing these 2 points here, which would be dexterity and intelligence and strength and dexterity, converting dexterity to strength gives us strength and intelligence and strength and strength. So this jewel alone gives us around 130 strength right here. Pretty considerable. In one jewel stock, we get 130 strength. For our clear, we're using Obliteration, which adds 15% physical damage extra chaos, since we're not gaining any benefit from the chaos due to not being able to deal non-chaos damage. We do get benefit up to 15% extra chaos damage, Phys extra chaos. And we also get enemies have a 20% chance to explode, dealing a quarter of their life as chaos damage, beneficial for clear speed. And as you can tell, I'm not using a medium cluster with Cry Wolf on it, which would give you a minimum of 10 power, which with Battlemage's Cry, that 10 power would give you about 50% of spell damage applies to attack damage, or at the value of 50%. Instead, we're actually allocating Wandslinger, so while we have our wand equipped, 100% of spell damage is applied to attack damage. So we don't need to worry about War Crying while we're clearing. And when we switch to single, we can drop down Wither and then War Cry, and War Cry should give us more than 100% because it is going to be on a single target with a boss, a minimum of 100, but ideally more than that. And Doon Cuebiyari on its own already gives us over 200% increased damage when in the main hand. Alright, so we're going to hop into a tier 12 Crimson Temple map right here, and I'll show you how clear and bossing works. Crimson Temple boss is a little bit tankier than some others, so it's going to be just a slight bit longer. So, what do we got here? We, despite being affected by elemental weakness, we're still capped. So between purity of elements and our flasks, we don't have to worry about elemental weakness.
Sleep now, little nightmare. Hello again, local.
I mean, the physical damage is no issue. I mean, the chaos damage is an issue, so we're not gonna grab that. Doesn't grant flash charges when killed isn't a concern to us. We're automatically generating all the flasks we need. Shield charge gets stuck on a lot of little things. As much as I would like to leap slam around, you can't with the wand equipped. Not great. So that's a pretty obvious downside of the Dance with Death node. It's obviously recommended for softcore because enemies damage against you is lucky, so even if we have 60% or so block, 5k life, and a Stibnite Flask going off, we will still get one shot every now and then. It's just gonna have it's just how it is with Dance with Death. Okay, I think I got stuck there, but not great for a demonstration. I'm gonna leave that in there though, just so everybody knows the candid clearing of this build sometimes. Although, to be honestly fair, the expedition mobs are a lot stronger than your regular mobs. I can't even shield charge properly sometimes. So we're at the boss, we're gonna switch setups, totem, war cry. You have to refresh your war cry every 7.25 seconds or so. And that's the boss. So yeah, You can obviously, instead of using Obliteration, if you wanted to, just clear with Doon Cuebiyari. You'd have more damage but slower clear, and in order to make sure you have Battlemage's Cry at least a decent value, you're gonna want a Cry Wolf notable on a medium cluster to get at least 10 minimum power, and that will make sure you have at least some of your spell damage applying to attacks again. And then you could, instead of using Wand Slinger, you can instead anoint Blood Siphon, which will give you 10% more life, 20 more strength, 10 life gain no kill. This might be the overall better option if you're not using this character for clearing, but more for bossing, since you not need the clearing setup at all. Alright, so thank you everybody for watching. Hope you all enjoyed that. If you have any ideas for improvements of the build, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, like, subscribe, follow on twitch.tv/Crotality. Instagram is Crotality_gaming. And as always, explore responsibly. See y'all later. Take care.